Hello and welcome to another online Bible study with Pastor Bill Brown. We're continuing on in this series in the book of Proverbs. This is number 12 in this series of looking at some instructional proverbs, this time regarding thefts, thieves, and thievery. And we've broken it down that way on purpose. We're going to begin with a couple of scriptures to introduce you to some of the words that Solomon uses in looking first at Proverbs 6:30. Men do not despise a thief if he steal to satisfy his soul when he is hungry. One other one, Proverbs 30 and verse 9, where he says, lest I be full and deny thee and say, in other words, he wants to be just in the middle somewhere, not too rich, not too poor, lest I do not be full and deny thee and say, who is the Lord, or lest I be poor and steal and take the name of my God in vain. In searching through the book of Proverbs about thefts, thieves, and thievery, it's an interesting study. And so let's look at the study of the matter first. Then we'll look at the seriousness of the matter. Now I'm going to hold what my last point is until I begin to share it. But as you do begin to study out this idea of the thief and God's opinion of a thief, the word that's there is a stealer. That's where the Hebrew word comes from. And the word steal is the root word, but it has greater meaning. And so you begin to get into this, and just like in our etymology of our English word, you begin to find out that a thief is different than a robber. The thief steals without the owner's knowledge. It's secretly stolen away. But the robber steals openly, whether resistance is offered or not. The robber doesn't hide. The robber uses force and power. Sometimes people will make the difference between the thief and the robber more in the amount of what is stolen. And there are some who will look at this and say, yes, and the thief steals a small amount and the robber steals or takes a large amount. But I think the first is the one that you need to understand. The thief is sneaky. The robber is openly brazen and steals it right in front of you. And our primary text there in Proverbs 6:30, while it introduces these different words, I'm going to actually go outside of Proverbs for just a minute in Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 5, where that particular verse uses three Hebrew words that help us to get a better understanding and expand our wisdom of Solomon teaching his son. So let me look at that first, and then we'll get back into the Proverbs. But in Obadiah 1 and verse 5, it says, if thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, and this holds true to our English word as well, would they not have stolen? So when we see all three, thieves, robbers, and stolen, we find out that the word thieves comes from the word ganab, and it's found in what we already showed you in chapter 6 and verse 30, chapter 29, verse 24, which we'll show you in a little while. And also, just to give you an idea, it's used some 17 times in the Old Testament, and it's always translated thief or thieves. So, and there is of course, a judgment made about this man breaking the law. The law is not changed, but the circumstances that when a man is hungry because he steals because he doesn't have anything, it evokes, and that's why I'm saying the circumstances evoke mercy and kindness, not harshness or cruelty. So it teaches us to look at the motive and the matter of whether the person is a thief or robber, or what were the circumstances. We'll come back to chapter 29 and verse 24 a little bit in the next point. When you look at robbers, the word there is shaddad, and it means powerful. There's big. He's a robber. He's a destroyer. He's the one who robs by force and deception, and his whole purpose is to spoil. Found in Proverbs 11:3, it's the word destroy. In Proverbs 19:26, it is the word wasteth. And in Proverbs 24 and verse 15, it is the word spoil. He is the waster. He is the destroyer. What does he destroy? Might be the destroyer of wealth. It may be that he's the destroyer of life, joy, peace, power, purpose, all by stealing a man's hope. The idea is that the robber ransacks. He doesn't take just what he wants. He ruins. He spoils. In fact, Proverbs 24 and 15 says, lay not wait, O wicked man, against the dwelling of the righteous. Spoil not his resting place. Don't destroy it. And then stolen, the last word that we see there. And again, we'll find this in the Proverbs in chapter 6 and verse 30. That was that first verse, and we find those two words. And it's translated steal. And it means to thieve, to carry away, to get by stealth, ganab. It's found not only in Proverbs 6 and 30, but also chapter 9 and verse 17, where it means stolen, and chapter 30 and verse 9, where it's talking about steal. And by the way, this is where we begin to get to the seriousness of the matter. Not only just in studying the word, but in fact, when you look at that word stolen, guess what? It's the same word that's used in the law of God when he says, thou shalt not steal. Don't steal. Now, let me go back and look at Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 24, where it says, whoso is a partner, I just mentioned it, I didn't show it to you, but here's whoso is a partner with a thief, hateth his own soul. He heareth cursing and bewrayeth it not, or betrayeth it not. When we study this subject, the Solomon begins to reveal to us that this is much more serious than just the thefts and the thieves. And even with the thievery, he gets into a responsibility here that every one of us have to carry out, of course, the law's demands. And in that area of responsibility, it has to do with how we carry out not only its actual penalties, but how, in what spirit we carry it out. See, Proverb takes the act of stealing to a whole nother level. Look at that again. Whoso is partner. Now, when you talk about that, again, remember that the Hebrew word thief is ganab. He is a stealer. We're not talking about only the obvious thieves of stealing money, jewelry, or property. We're talking about the ones who also steal dignity, or steal a person's ability, or steal a person's testimony, or power, or even their opportunities, and we could go on in our list. This verse, in fact, is not even about the thief, but it does reveal something about the thief. It's really about the one who will not be truthful. And by not being truthful in a court of law, you are a partner, and there's a partnership. And let me speak to that. This verse, of course, condemns the person who is a partner with a thief. It also speaks about an open hostility. If we partner with a thief, we have an open hostility to our own soul. Imagine that. How is it here that this person might become a partner or have a partnership with a thief? Well, the idea is that he is either failing to reveal the identity of the thief, or he is being a false witness under oath in a court of law. This man may have been a witness to the event, but he will not help the court or the victim recover their losses. The way and why oftentimes Proverbs is generic is because the ways in which this man actually may have partnered with a thief are many, but they're always dangerous and literally devouring. To be a partner with a thief reveals a rejection of God's law. God said, thou shalt not steal. So anyone who steals is violating the law of God. If you violate the law of God, you've broken all the laws. You've made yourself now criminally liable. And to partner with a thief means that you are revealing your true appreciation of what you or what that other person has motivated or moved you to protect the thief's identity. In other words, it's more important for you to protect the person's identity than your own soul. It's going to damage you. Don't do that. That's how bad this is, and that's the whole point. There is a partnership, and then it speaks about damage. To partner with a thief, he says, reveals a hatred for your own soul. He hates his own life, himself, and his person. That's the comparison. A person is an eternal being, and your value is greater than the whole world. Your value is not locked up in your body or how you look. It's your soul. It's who you are inside. Your existence in this world is only temporal, but your existence is eternal. The world will pass away, but you will still exist. But where you will exist has a great deal to with what you do with Jesus Christ and how you listen to the wisdom of the Word, and that wisdom is Christ. To exist under God's condemnation is to be banned from all that is good and beneficial. It really, when you're living in this life, it's living on the edge of existing right up to the edge of the lake of fire. And unless you repent and believe, you're going to die and be cast into that lake of fire. I don't want to get off too far on that, but it's important. This is the seriousness of the matter. That's why it states that a man who partners with a thief is an enemy to his own soul. There's nothing more valuable than your soul. Don't let a robber or a thief steal your appreciation and of the value of your own soul. In fact, Christ himself said, if you understand that a man's soul is at a premium, in Matthew 16 and 26, he says the whole world is a bad trade for a soul. It's not worth it. Imagine that. There's nothing in this world, and not the whole world, compares to the value of your soul. So this thief, this one who partners with a thief, has done such damage. He's stolen the true value of his own soul by partnering with that thief. Let me show you also the idea of hateth, the hostility that's mentioned here. That is the fact that there is a thief, and he acts with hostile intentions. His purpose is not just to satisfy his need because he's impoverished, but it is to spoil his victim. That's the robber. A robber doesn't care that he destroys a man's heritage or family or business. He doesn't care that he destroys a whole church. The robber always leaves a path of destruction, not just a loss that may be replaced. In fact, that's what, if we understand the lust of the flesh left unchecked and out of control, he becomes the hostile agent. He is the attacker from within. In Galatians chapter 5, Paul talks about how the flesh is always angry and contentious with the spirit. It's at war, and the war we fight is a spiritual one, but that doesn't make it any less hostile. Notice again this statement, whoso is partner with a thief hateth his own soul. That word hate means that you hate knowledge. It means that you hate instruction. When we follow that through the book of Proverbs, it means that you hate reproof and you hate the upright. As a result, you're really hating your own soul. Check yourself. The wisest man that ever lived is telling us the value of knowledge and wisdom and understanding. But he's also telling us the value of our soul and who we really are. And it does not have anything to do with how we appear. It has to do with how we think, who we are inside. Let me look at a couple of other Proverbs to emphasize again the seriousness of this matter of looking for that similar phrase, he that partners with a thief hateth his own soul. Well, what about this soul? So look at Proverbs 6:32. And if it comes up, I may have buried it in there. Let's see. Oh, I'm not clicking on the right one. There it is. 6:32. But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. Now, we're only going to look at 3 verses on this. But the idea is that he ruins his life. He ruins it in so many ways. It can be costly to your personal health. It can be costly to the family, causing a family unit to be destroyed. It can be costly to your very life. Commit adultery, you've got another husband, he might want to come kill you. But the idea, again, I'm not going to define it. If you do this, you are destroying. The word understanding here is actually translated heart elsewhere. In the Hebrew, it refers to the feelings, the intellect, and the will. So it seems like we can say his mind is missing. He lacketh understanding. In other words, he's not thinking at all. And I think how many times my parents would correct me and talk to me. Why did you do this? And I go, I don't know. Oh my goodness, how guilty was I of not even thinking. This is the robber. And he wants what he wants at all cost, and he doesn't care about anything else. He doesn't think about anything else. Contrast that with the thief that we won't despise and we shouldn't despise. The conditions mentioned here are very different. That man was satisfying a hunger. This man's satisfying a hunger too. But it's because this man had something he shouldn't have had. It's prohibited. The other man needed it. The idea here is again that the thief or the robber in both cases doesn't eliminate his guilt or even his recompense, what he pays, but the payment, oh my, it's a lot different. The word destroy can be translated as waste or corrupt or just lose. So the man wastes his own soul. This man corrupts his own soul. This man loses his own soul. If we were to look at Proverbs 8:36, that's said in the whole connotation of the personification of wisdom. In that particular verse, I'll show it in just a second, it says, he that's, well, first of all, it's wisdom that's speaking. Cover this from verse 32 to verse 34. But he says, hearken unto me, and this is wisdom speaking. Hear instruction and be wise. Blessed is the man that heareth me. But then he says, but he that sinneth against me, he that destroys, won't heed, just pushes it out of the way. But he that sinneth against me, against wisdom, wrongeth his own soul. All that hate me love death. It's the same word that we saw back in verse 32, the word destroy. The one who wastes wisdom, the one who corrupts understanding and destroys knowledge is doing violence to his own soul. That word wrongeth that's there, you get a word picture, at least I did anyway, of shaking a piece of linen outside, out the window, and when you shake it and you snap it violently. Destroy wisdom, and you are doing violence, an act of violence against your own soul. Not a good idea. Then look at Proverbs 15:32, and we'll find also a similar proverb with this same idea. He that refuseth instruction or correction despises his own soul, but he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. So this proverb's telling us that the one who refuses correction is actually endangering his own soul. If you refuse instruction, you despise, you cast off, you reject, you loathe as precious your own soul. To refuse, he that refuseth, is to avoid or to set it not, to let it die from neglect. To act without wisdom destroys your own soul. To destroy wisdom is to do violence to your soul. To refuse correction endangers your soul. Can you see the value of your own soul? Or has the thief come along and stolen your biblical perceptions of reality? The robber leaves a path of destruction behind. Turn and receive what wisdom gives you. God's wisdom about you and your value. Now, I will say that if you continue to do this, the path has already been marked out. But the damage can be undone. Redemption is possible. So I want to talk to you before we close this out about delivering your soul or your life from being destroyed in this world. Let's look at the saving of the soul. Now, I'm not talking about redeeming. The saving of a soul, the redemption of a soul, the reconciliation to God can only be made through Jesus Christ, through his sacrifice, his atonement, through his death, his burial, and his resurrection. But in this life, in this world, you can deliver your soul from trouble if you will follow this prescription. And I can't make it any more practical than what Proverbs does. And you can see it as we look at it. First of all, let's look at Proverbs 19 and verse 8. He that getteth wisdom loveth his own soul. He that keepeth understanding shall find good. In this, the first prescription is to get wisdom. In other words, own wisdom. You've made it your purchase. We see it in another Proverbs where he says, buy the truth. That's that same word, get. Buy the truth and sell it not. Not that you can buy it with money, but you've made your purchase in setting your priorities right, in investing your time in learning, listening, and then heeding God's word. If you possess wisdom, it can be seen through the choices. And know this, here's the sign of it. You love your own soul. Proverbs 3 and 12 uses the same word translated love to describe how God loves those he corrects. He intends the best. He gives the best, even in his chastening, because he loves and he values your soul. So he that getteth wisdom, we value our own soul. We can deliver ourselves from trouble. We can also do that if we look at Proverbs 19 and 16. Here we're going to see that he that keepeth the commandment, keepeth, and those are the same Hebrew words, by the way, keepeth his own soul. In this, the choice is yours, but I think it's pretty clear. The saving of the soul comes through, number one, getting wisdom, but number two, obey God. Obeying God, that's important. The choice is yours. You determine the direction, but God has predetermined the results. Just remember that thieves lurk near. They are everywhere. They seek to destroy your perceptions and to get you to see your greatest hope is not to be in God, but in yourself. But in doing so, we destroy. We harass. We violate. We steal and destroy our own soul. Don't let them steal your obedience to God. Don't let them replace God's law with the law of man's logic and reason. Remember, the scriptures say there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, and the ends thereof are death. This man who obeys God gets wisdom. He takes heed to God's law. And when you do so, you put a hedge of protection around your own soul. He that keepeth, he that guardeth, he that holds on to the laws of God protects your own soul. One last verse there in Proverbs 11 and 17 where it says, the merciful man doeth good to his soul, but he that is cruel troubleth his own flesh. The saving of the soul comes by getting wisdom, by obeying God, and then lastly, by being merciful. Because you have experienced the mercy of God, haven't you? Then you ought to be merciful. The choice is yours. The option really is right there. It's to either be merciful or cruel. But again, the results are predetermined and they are set by God. Showing kindness towards someone who does not deserve it does your soul good. If you ask me how all of that works, I must say the fullness of that fact lies in the hands of God, and I am not able to peer into it. But that's the same as the troubles. I don't know how that comes either, but I know there is the law of the harvest in place here. And being merciful rather than being cruel will bring you greater profit. Sometimes people who are cruel do so. There's a distinct and horrific, really, joy from being cruel. How sad is that? But you do your soul good if you're merciful. In conclusion, thefts, thieves, and thievery run through Proverbs, and I haven't gotten to the bottom of it all. But it reveals a robber of souls, a thief of thoughts, and a string of robberies that leave behind nothing less but loss of life and destruction. The warning is clear, young man. The warning is serious to all. The choice is yours, but be certain the results are in the hand of God. And if you have, like I have, made some bad choices, remember that God is a God of mercy. The psalmist knew Jehovah God was a merciful God and that he was full of compassion. That's why he wrote, "But thou, O Lord, art a God full of compassion and gracious, long-suffering, and plenteous in mercy and truth." Even Ephesians 2 and 4 says, "But God is rich in mercy. And because he is, he sent his only begotten Son to die for us, so that he might have compassion on us and change us and raise us up to be his sons." Don't let the thieves and the robbers steal your peace, your passion, or your purpose, which is found in God. Lord bless you and keep you in this word of his and in his place. Lord bless.